Welcome to the first video of Mark's Self-Improvement Workshops. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to prepare and present a speech. Some people think that speeches are one of the worst fears, even higher than death and taxes. With the proper preparation and the proper presentation, there is nothing to fear in giving a speech. Just follow some of the tips and tricks that I have to show you today. The first key in preparing your speech is to figure out what the heck you want to talk about. For me, I find this one of the most challenging processes, and although some of the topics are quite interesting, there are a couple of different ways to go through and find those hard to find topics. The first one I'd like to share with you today is the topic of the day from history. If you're stuck for a topic, look at a specific day in history and then go back just a couple years to whathappenedinhistory.com and check it out. What happened on this day in history? Could it be that a new country was formed? Perhaps a queen or a prime minister was made. Look for something interesting. There's a lot of events out there, and if you're really stuck, this is one way to get you going, to get you thinking about what kind of topics that you want to see. Another such way is to go into the library and randomly pick a book off the shelf. You never know what you're going to find. Once you have found your topic, what you need to do is come up with a couple of points about that particular topic, and this may require just a little bit of research. I'd recommend picking 2 to 3 points that you can talk about with just a little bit of extra information, because once you have those 2 to 3 points, what I do is I take and I write 3 sub-points beneath them so that I can go through and talk about them. Now once you've got those 2 to 3 points, the next part is to create an effective opening and an effective closing. You want to, with your introduction, to go through and introduce the topic to the audience. With your conclusion, you also want to give a little bit of a summary and close with something related to your opening. Once you've got those 2 to 3 points, and you've created that interesting opening for sure, consider what type of props you want to use, whether you wanted to use a roll of tape, or perhaps you wanted to use nothing, or perhaps you wanted to use specific gestures. Consider that when you're giving that presentation, because it makes the difference between a good speech and a great speech. Once you've completed your initial speech writing, after you've filled in the body of your speech, read it over, make sure you understand it, and then look at your introduction. Your introduction to the speech is what you give to the Toastmaster or the chair at the meeting, and that person will read that introduction for you just before you begin your speech. If you have a flat introduction or no introduction at all, it's a lot harder for you to go and get that audience motivated, especially if you're giving something like a humorous speech in the humorous speech contest. You want to make sure that your audience is pumped up, ready to go, ready to rock and roll, so that when you go up, you give your speech, you don't have to spend an extra 5 to 10 minutes warming them up. And the last piece of preparation that I want to offer to you is self-preparation. For me, when I'm giving a speech, I have to be in the right mindset, because if I'm not, things don't always go so well. You have to be prepared to give that speech. You have to go through, think about what you want to say, and present it in such a way that both you and the audience can understand it. Things also to consider are what rituals you want to do before your speech. For me, not eating a lot of heavy foods before giving a speech helps me out. A third point on self-preparation is consider the way you're dressed. If you're going to a speech to a business audience and you wear a t-shirt with shorts and sandals, you're probably not going to get a lot of respect. Always consider your audience and dress appropriately. On to presentation, and presentation is definitely a key part of your speech itself. What I like to do during the speech itself is to go and scan the audience before I give that speech, go and talk to them, see if I can strike up a conversation and get a little bit of personal information about the audience yourself. With that information, you can include it in part of your speech, and that connects you to that person or that group of people that's in the audience. Another option for presentation as well, slightly before you're giving your speech, is to consider the environment. See if it needs to have a little extra sound, so you need to project a little bit more, or you need to project a little bit less, depending on the acoustics of the room. Always scan your environment, see where you're going to enter onto the stage or where you're going to leave the stage, and consider other factors that might be out there as well. What might distract you? May the furnace come on? Will someone's cell phone go off? All of these are certainly things to consider when you're presenting your speech. And my final point on presenting is always start with a smile when you're giving your speech. In review, let's review the steps that we took in preparation. The first step being speech preparation, the second being intro preparation, and the third being self-preparation. For the presentation in itself, we had consider your self-presentation and recognize the environment. While speeches themselves may be one of the greatest fears of people out there, even above death and taxes, with the proper presentation and preparation, your speech will go by with no difficulty at all. I hope you have enjoyed today's workshops, and I'm sure you'll use the tips that I presented to you in your next speech. Happy speaking!